That's right. It's nothing but Netflix. And no, this is not Rob. It's me, Chappell, back again to host another episode of Nothing But Netflix while Rob is on the road to New York. By the time you're hearing this, he should be back, I assume. But in his absence, I went ahead and took the reins to talk about one of the shows that are in the top 10 of the Netflix top 10 right now in the US at least, and probably worldwide. It's Nobody Want This, starring Kristen Bell. And with me to talk about it, I had to bring in somebody who is also worldwide, Mrs. International herself, Shannon. Shannon, what's up?
I love being Mrs. International just because I live in Australia.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
worldwide.
interesting. I live in
Well, you live
Australia.
in Australia, but everybody over here knows you. You're famous over here. You're famous over there. You're famous worldwide. Listen, Survivor International exists because of you. Welcome.
Yes, all of those things are true. I love this intro. Don't fact check anything that Chappelle is
Please don't.
saying though.
Mm-mm,
No,
no,
just
don't do
trust
that.
it, believe it. Yeah.
Shannon, I'm so happy to have you here. I've been told that the listeners of RHAP have been clamoring for a Chappelle and Shannon podcast for a very long time,
Don't
and
fact
I
check.
think this might be officially our very first one-on-one podcast.
No.
Yes, yes,
No. No.
gotta be. Well, okay. What was the last one?
Oh my God.
I see. They never let us link up like
No.
this. We always have stragglers. We always have other people
Rob.
around.
Remember when
Rob.
we podcasted with Rob for 7.5 hours? Or what was
Okay,
it,
to be
7
fair,
hours?
yeah, for about 2 of those hours, it was just me and you, and Rob had kind of just like bowed out gracefully.
He was so tired. It was like 3 in the morning for him. But okay, that's fair. What I think it is that often we're on podcasts with other people and we talk so much that it feels like maybe it's just me and you, and that's what the commenters might say. This time we just
Yes.
got rid of the other people, so it's
Listen,
just the two of us.
the people wanted this. This movie or the show's called Nobody Wants This, but people were asking for the Chappelle Shannon collaboration.
Who
So here we
was? People were? You sound like
people.
me.
I listen, I'm channeling you, okay? People
People
wanted
want it.
this. They
But
did.
I thought
I
nobody
promise.
wants this. People
Yeah.
want this.
People wanted this. And so,
Right.
Shannon, I thank you so much for volunteering to come here and talk about this with me because I feel like there's a lot of overlap into some of your areas of expertise.
Yes, I mean, it's a Jewish podcasting show. And I was like, I want to talk about it. I think I messaged you and I said, it's about Judaism, podcasting, and as someone who grew up in the OC era, loving, to be fair, actually, this is going to surprise people, loving Ben McKenzie. I had a crush on Ryan during the OC, but that does not track with adult me. I did marry like the grown-up version of Seth Cohen, I feel. So I'm obviously in love with Adam Brody now. Like now I see the light. And I'm here to talk about the show because it spoke to me, you know.
Yeah. So the show is 10 episodes, about 30 minutes or so each episode on Netflix. Like I said, it is in the top 10, at least in the US and in Australia, Shannon, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's been everywhere, although I don't know if that's because my Jewish community keep talking about it. But no, it's I've seen news articles. It's been very, very popular here as well.
Yeah. People are talking about it. People ask for this. And so we're going to talk about it. First, we're going to give like just a brief overview of what the show is about, our thoughts about it. And then after that, if you haven't watched it, we'll get into some spoilery content where we'll get into, a little bit more about what's going on. That work for you, Shannon?
Yes, definitely. And I will say, yeah, I mean, it's 10 episodes that are like between 20 and 30 minutes. This is like 1 week of some Australian Survivor seasons. And I'm not saying that like in a hyperbolic way. That is actually true. Definitely like the premiere weeks that are like over 4 hours. This would track with that. So it's quite watchable. Bingeable. Yeah.
Such an easy watch. Such an easy watch. I knocked it out in a day. And it was so good. But Shannon, what did you think about it overall?
I really enjoyed it, and then I spoke about this with my friend last night. Like, is it that I enjoy it because it's made for me? Like, would I have enjoyed it as much if like without the Jewish references where I'm like, yes, that's right. If it wasn't podcasters where it was my job in religion, like clashing in this way. So it spoke to me, but I also think it was a good show. Cast is on point. We have Eleanor from The Good Place dating Seth Cohen, and her sister is Willa from Succession, and his brother is Jonah from Veep. Like, I watch all those shows, and I thought the cast was on point. I think it's really funny. I think it only got better as it went along, and like the kind of crux of the issue of like whether their relationship can work without spoilers, is compelling and real. And the chemistry is fire. So this had like everything you kind of want from like a fun, compelling, but like kind of just like cute and easy watch kind of rom-com show.
Yeah, I totally agree. The cast was full of bangers. Obviously, Kristen Bell as our lead, Joanne or Joe throughout, and then Adam Brody as Noah, the hot rabbi. I really saw the premise of this and thought, oh, this should be interesting. But I was kind of pleasantly surprised with the directions that it took, because it was such a fun show, like a fun little rom-com about this couple that on paper shouldn't really work. Apparently there are some strict rules here with being a hot rabbi and dating somebody who is not Jewish. And so although they have some good chemistry, I mean, just straight out the bat, great chemistry between the two lead characters.
Yeah.
It seems like fate is not going to allow them to be together. And so there's going to be a lot of pushing back against them. Also, just two very entertaining people as well. And so it was fun watching them on a journey. But I definitely have some questions about some of the intricacies about their relationship later on once we get into the spoilery section.
Yes. Well, I do feel like if the kind of crux of the chemistry is going to be they're like witty and the banter's really good. And you can see even from like the first meeting that like sparks are flying, but like then the writing has to be so good where like, yeah, they have to be funny. You have to be like Adam Brody, which I think say if he was even being silent, he'd be like, I didn't say anything. And it'd be like, Adam, please. But I do think that the writing was really good, and like that chemistry and that wit was really clear. And they both are the kind of characters where you're like, yeah, you are like smart, funny, witty people. And that's written well. And I can get why you connect. Like, I think they did a good job of being like within the difficulties of this relationship where like you probably shouldn't even bother. And we can talk about how much that's true in different ways. I can see why you're so drawn to each other, where it kind of feels like worth it to try in the face of that adversity. And I think they did really well with that, like the actors and the chemistry and the writing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, the cast is also where I found a lot of the joy watching this. You mentioned Justine Luke from I guess Willa from Succession, right?
Yeah.
And then you also had was it who
Timothy
else was
Simons.
in this? Oh yes, Timothy Simons as Sasha, his brother. Oh yeah, he's very good. No, I haven't seen Veep. I've seen clips.
Yeah, Veep is so. I mean, like, there's so many jokes in Veep, but like, it's like I think like per capita or per minute jokes is Veep, and like, but Jonah's such a heel in Veep, and being able to just like enjoy him more as Sasha was great. Like, I think he was like my most enjoyable part of the show.
Yeah. Also, the interplay between Sasha and Morgan, unsuspected, but yeah, I really want to talk about that too. So if you have not watched this, not to spoil it too much, but like you got some will they, won't they? You might be rooting for this couple. Maybe you think that they have nowhere to go, but it's a fun watch. Check it out on Netflix, and then tune into the rest of the podcast, because Shannon and I have to get into what this was really about and kind of some of the funnier parts, because I thought this was very, very funny, Shannon.
Yes. What were your funniest storylines?
I think first of all, full spoilers now. We've given the warning. Yeah, we're about to talk about it.
But even if you're driving, you've had the time to pull over and click away. Yeah.
Exactly. I do want to talk about Kristen Bell as a comedic actress. She's so good. She's so good. I met her watching Veronica Mars by Met.
Oh, I thought you met her. I'm like, okay, don't even like, because I would lead with that. Okay, yeah, I didn't see Veronica Mars, but like I know her as Gossip Girl and Eleanor from The Good Place. Yeah.
Yes. So I know her from Veronica Mars, and that's very much not a comedic role. She has like some, comedic timing, but it's not a funny like show. But then I did watch The Good Place, and she still got it. She's good in there. And I think I might have liked her more in this role than I did as Eleanor. Because she was so funny, so outgoing. And then like you said, the banter is really good. So quick and so witty. I love a good conversation, Shannon. So for me, seeing her and then Noah, of course, Adam Brody, playing off of each other very quickly in this relationship that starts between someone who is very Jewish and someone who is as far from Jewish, I guess, as you can get. It was fun. It was very fun to watch.
What is as far from Jewish as you can get? I will say, I
don't
think she's
a point-blank atheist deciding not to ever convert.
Yeah, as a Jewish atheist who's a podcaster, this podcast, this show really spoke to me. Like when she's working in bed, I'm like, she is me. She's podcasting. She's getting reviews that say that she's annoying. I'm like, you are me. But then he's so Jewish. He's a Jewish camp. I met Peter at a Jewish camp, much like their camp Havarim camp that's friends. That's Chaverim friends. That's where I met my husband. Do you know how many Jewish basketball games I've watched Peter run up and down the court? And he's said to say on this podcast that they're better than that team. And that's something that I will say because I am married to him. No, Peter's good at basketball, okay? But I was seeing the vision, okay?
Yeah,
so this is why the show spoke to me. Yeah, I mean, what were we saying before I went into Jewish basketball?
No. Tell us more about Peter and the Matzah Ballers. I need to know.
They should have been called the Matzah Ballers. I mean, look, injuries galore. So many injuries in Jewish basketball. I don't even know why. It's not professional, but yeah, I've been on the sidelines many a time in the Jewish basketball games.
So this spoke to you a little bit. I mean, in a way that like you weren't even expecting, right? Like obviously Jewish podcaster, you're like, oh, that's me. But to see some of these dating things, did you feel like this was me. Yeah, did you feel like it was tropey? Like it was too like these were too on the nose, or was it just something that specifically these are Shannon branded things?
Honestly, it was tropey, but then I think like it worked because I think we may be tropey. Like everything they were doing, I'm like, God damn, we are like this. Like I can't come on the show and say that we aren't annoying when people have non-Jewish partners. Like I can't come on the show and say that the people in my life, like maybe the older generation would be like, are they Jewish? That's what we do. Like it's true, but it was like thinking the worst parts of ourselves, like echoed back to us in ways that were funny, but like also a little concerning, but also I can't say that it was untrue. And it's written by Erin Foster, who has converted to be with her Jewish husband who's not a rabbi, and maybe that's a spoiler of where this will go. But like I was like, damn, it really looks like her experience coming into a Jewish community as like a quote unquote outsider, and it seems like we were unpleasant to her. And I'm sorry, Erin. I'm sorry that we did that. We are like that sometimes.
If she's telling this story from her personal experience, then this was tough.
Everyone
this was tough to get into.
Yeah.
What is this word that they keep using to describe the whore number 1 and whore number 2?
Shiksa.
And shiksa.
Yeah.
This is a very much like you are an outsider word that they were using to her face pretty much throughout the entire series. I think 10 episodes straight she was called shiksa to her face. At least
I love hearing you try to say it. It's great.
I'm trying so hard.
You're doing so well. Yeah. I've never called anyone a shiksa to their face, so I'm not going to take this one, all right? I think I'm a welcoming and accepting person. What would be the most non-Jewish would be, I think, if she was like deeply religious in another way. I think that would be worse. Because like, honestly, and let's get to the crux of it. Like, can she and Noah be together? This we'll get to and I have many, many thoughts about so much of this stuff. I've literally spent a week talking about it with different friends around like how it represents Judaism and the characters. Like this really spoke to my specific community, but can she be with Noah? Now, I think that you can convert. Like, to outlay personally, Noah is a very different type of Judaism to me. Noah's a Reform Jew. I'm an Orthodox Jew, an irreligious atheist Orthodox Jew. There's a lot going on. So I know that like converting for Orthodox Judaism is very stringent and extreme and years. And even then, I know many, many people who've converted to Judaism and it's difficult. And like, yes, they do it for love. Like, I don't think you have to believe in it. Let's just be honest. I don't know as much about the Reform conversion process. I do think she can do that. And for a relationship like this with Noah, which seems really special, like, I think that's completely fine. If he was just like very Jewish, that would be fine. The issue is Noah is a rabbi. And again, I don't know, as much about the Reform community, but in my world, and I think this would track, they keep calling her, she'd be Mrs. Head Rabbi. That has a name. She'd be the Rebbitzin. Like when you go and you're like Rabbi Rocklove, she'd be Rebbitzin Rocklove. Like in my community, being the Rebbitzin is the job. You know, you help women before they get married. You might help girls before, like on their bat mitzvah. Like you are, as Rebecca, I think fairly says to her, a symbol of the community. You represent him. You represent the shul. You represent the synagogue. You represent the community. Yeah, I don't think that she can do that. I think she can, I don't think that they can be the rabbi and the Rebbitzin. I don't think she can be the Rebbitzin and have a sex podcast. I do think she'd be an interesting Rebbitzin. She'd give interesting advice. And I also think, and maybe this is the thing, having a Rebbitzin podcast where she's like a modern converted Rebbitzin, that sounds like great content. Maybe she should do that. But being this type of person and being Rebbitzin Rocklove, no, that will not work. So that's where I stand with whether they can be together.
That's so interesting because, very quickly, the show identifies him as he's the cool rabbi and the hot rabbi, right? So he's like, I believe he's smoking weed at the table with them. I think he passes her a joint at some point. He's clearly having sex outside of marriage and just kind of living his life. He curses. He's doing a lot of things that a rabbi normally wouldn't do. So I think the show tries to establish that, we have rules, but fudge a little bit on the rules. I mean, we'll get to that later on when we start talking about his mom. So I thought the fudging that they identified in the first episode, where it's like, oh, well, he's not your typical rabbi. I thought that was what the show was doing to lead us to believe that maybe she could be not your typical Mrs. Head Rabbi, later on.
Yeah.
But it's like the jump to head rabbi is really where the change starts, because as a rabbi, he didn't have an issue with this, but with his potential to go and be the new head rabbi, I think that's when everybody starts looking at him like, all right, maybe you're taking this a little too far.
Well, there's two issues. The first one is she doesn't even want to convert. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't know if that's right for her, if Judaism's right for her. She seems to think that there should be a lot of meaning in it. I'm just like, girl, convert. Do it for love. It's fine. You're not meant to say it, but it's fine. And then like, you meant to like, I care, whatever, Mm-hmm. And I think that there are things like about Judaism. I say this as an Orthodox Jewish atheist. There are things about Judaism that you can love without necessarily believing in God. Like, she's agnostic, I think. Like, she could still find the things in Judaism that she loves. The food. Like, I would have started, like, the food, the family, like, the sense of community, all of that is great. I wouldn't have started with Havdalah. That's never been something that I think is, like, a great part of Judaism, where we're going to see the stars. That's not something, and I've done Havdalah. It's fine. It's not how I would convert someone to the religion.
Well, explain how that works, because I'm confused. You got to talk to me like I'm new here, because I'm new here.
It's different how I've done Havdalah, but yeah, basically, so, okay, how much you know? Are you, like, she doesn't even know what, like, Shabbat is. You know what Shabbat is?
I know that Akiva talks about it a lot.
We're about to do Shannon Explains Judaism to Chappell podcast, and everyone wants this. This is great for our first two-person podcast. Okay,
literally, everybody wants this. That's what the name of the podcast is. It's the name of the show. Everybody wants this.
We should name that this. We should do a podcast and call it Everybody Wants This. And we should record in the kitchen where the sound quality is the best. Did that annoy you as well as a pod? I'm like, why are they in the kitchen?
Why are they in the kitchen? Yeah.
Anyway, so okay, Shabbat, from Friday night when the sun goes down. When the sun goes down, there's going to be Shabbat, and then that 25-ish hours. For me, in like Orthodox Judaism, if you were keeping Shabbat, you wouldn't do anything. You go to synagogue, you go to shul, but you wouldn't like use your phone, you wouldn't watch TV, you can't turn on the light, you can't like cook with fire, you can't create fire. So any of the like electricity around that. Am I the person to be explaining all these to you at a 12?
I mean, don't get me wrong. We could do a follow-up. We could bring on different panels. This could be a whole thing. I feel like people
will like, anyway, if their interpretation is different, this is my interpretation of
and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So and then like when the new sun goes down, when there are 3 stars in the sky, like Shabbat is over, and Havdalah would be like the ceremony that would kind of end Shabbat. So you see the stars, and then you would, in my world, burn a candle, sing some songs, etc. And so and that's not something that I've ever thought would be like that would bring people over to Judaism. If I wanted to bring someone over to Judaism, I'd start at the entrees and end at dessert. That's probably where I would go, that's where I would. So so that was, what were we saying before that? I'm getting so much.
Well, you were just kind of confused about why he would use Havdalah to convert her, but you said that maybe the community and the family aspects of it.
Exactly.
But I think that's the problem here, is that the community that's surrounding him is very they're very finger waggy around her.
That's not it.
Yeah.
Yes, fair enough, but have you tried Knedler, matzah ball soup? Maybe we just start and ended food. You're right. The community sucks. You're right. The things that I love about Judaism, like family and all, because Judaism is like very family centric, like on a Friday night where other people maybe go out and party. I hate partying. I'm with family, it's very family oriented, but the family's not nice to her, and the community, that's not good either. You're right. There's not a lot bringing her over.
Yeah.
But Noah is. It's enough to do it for Noah.
They're protective over their rabbi, she comes in, to be fair, she makes a bit of an entrance. She shows up to Shabbat in a red dress. Like, she is the only person in just a stunning, just red dress. Everybody looks at her.
But the cutouts I thought maybe weren't right.
Yeah, I mean, just even in that scene, I think she's the only one wearing any color that's not like relatively neutral. Like she just
They
like
show
it's
that
like
well. Yeah.
they made sure to show her off, and everybody immediately is like, "Who is this woman? She's not Jewish." And also like, "Why are you talking to our rabbi who?" Of course, everybody else is trying to marry off to their relatives. You know, like, "Oh, I have
That
a
was
niece
so
that you should meet."
legit. He would be like that.
So legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
he's successful, he's handsome, and he's a man of God. So you know
That and Brody. Yeah.
what's not to like? Oh, this character Noah, and so what's not to like, right? So they're trying to like basically just ship him off to whichever person that they approve of that he can be with. But this lady has a sex podcast, and that's already a little too edgy for obviously his mom and the people in the church, and even we will see later on the stakeholders. I mean, you know, when the board of the temple is like, you know, running into him and he's in a sex shop, things can get a little complicated when it's time to be head rabbi, I guess.
Yeah. Well, then those are the two issues. She doesn't want to convert without feeling connected to the religion and feeling like it's not meaningful and it's meaningful to him. And I think that part is dumb. I think she should just convert for him. But the second part that I think is an issue is even if she converts, she couldn't be this person, I don't think, and be the Rebbitzin. She could be Jewish. If he was just Jewish, that's fine. But I think the Rebbitzin can't have a sex podcast. Like, could she just change? Like, is that fair for her to like change her career and the content and make it different to what it is? Like, maybe not. And maybe that's kind of like, we'll talk about Morgan, but like what Morgan's talking about changing, I think they would have to both change a lot to be in this relationship, or one of them would have to change a lot, or someone would have to maybe make more compromises. And I guess you question, is that always negative? You know, that's an interesting thing around like, you know, changing for a relationship is so bad. And like Morgan kind of points that out. But like at the end of the day, like I moved states for Peter and he's moved states for me. Like if you get into a relationship, you're using two lives together, like someone will have to compromise. Maybe both people have to compromise in some way. And like, if you can do that, then that's not necessarily negative. It's about like fitting two lives together. If you can do that and not build resentment and find a way that it works, I think that that's not necessarily negative, but it is something that we, you know, that is synonymous with being negative, I think, because it should be a bad thing to change yourself for a guy. You know, it should be a bad thing to change yourself for someone else. But I think it is like a realistic thing about like long-term life partnerships. So maybe they can find a compromise. Like maybe she converts and he does other leadership Jewish things that aren't necessarily being rabbi. I don't know. It's true. Someone's gonna have to give up on their dreams. It's tough.
He doesn't have to be head rabbi. He just doesn't. You can just be a rabbi.
It's his
he does. But I mean, you know, I'm sure she didn't want to convert at first. I mean, it doesn't seem like she wants to. I think, like you said, there's some give and take here. And we don't really explore what that's going to end like, because there are other obstacles in this relationship as well, starting with the fact that this head rabbi, or this future head rabbi, was recently engaged, kind of. He was in a relationship with Rebecca. And Rebecca, who everyone seems to love, she's perfect for this role. She's like the person that everybody thinks he should be with. They've been together for a long time, so long that she found his engagement ring and started wearing it as if he proposed. Shannon, what do you think about this move? Is this a good strategic move?
No.
Would
I do that? I'm trying to think.
I don't think you would do that.
Because I see a lot of myself in the Jewish women. Like that's why I'm like, I wouldn't do that. But Peter proposed when I was 25. If he'd left it till I was like 28, probably would have done it. You know, like
if you found the ring, you gotta wear the ring at that point.
She
you know,
found it by like he's like going into like his locked desk or whatever it was. So find is a strong word. Sort. You know, she found it like you'd find a treasure. Like she didn't like stumble upon it. Like she really went looking. Yeah, I mean, I think that for Noah, you could question leading Rebecca on. Like they're very vague about the ages, about everyone. And that's kind of one of the questions I had. But like, how old is Rebecca? She'd been with him for what, 3 years? Like
I think it was 3 years.
That's a lot of time for Rebecca, honestly. Like, not that she should propose to herself, but like I do think some serious questions had to be asked about like when is this happening? And he clearly had doubts and didn't want to admit them to her or him. Herself. And I feel like maybe she's picking up on that, and instead of like walking away, like Rebecca has like clearly some flaws in this way, but like I think that they do actually a fairly good job of creating some sympathy for Rebecca, who should just be an antagonist. But like I kind of felt bad. Like obviously like he's now like in this like loving relationship that's moving so fast when she spent so long waiting. she misses him and she just wanted it so much. And I think he wanted it to be right so much. And it's this kind of like people pleaser guy. That's a huge part of his personality, is like wanting to be liked, that he, you know, didn't see the signs in himself and was going to propose anyway, despite not kind of, you know, having the right feelings. And she could see that he was hesitant probably and wasn't doing it, and still was like, if I just kind of brute force it, you know, then maybe it'll happen. And I kind of have sympathy for both of them. So I can see that he's just trying to appease people, and I can see that she just wants this thing so much, even though she did something genuinely crazy that makes that makes, you know, what Noah's gonna do, which is not wrong, but like him moving on so fast in his relationship with Joanne, like it's easy to back it because she's kind of like, I think at first, the crazy other woman who no one could have sympathy for. And then I think you kind of, maybe because I identify with her, but I think it kind of builds sympathy and like has more nuance as it gets further into the show.
No, I totally agree with you. Initially, Rebecca gave me the ick. That ring thing, I was like, oh no. I didn't think you could, honestly, until the last episode when she does come back. But it took the entire season for her to win.
And they did well with that, though.
Yeah, they really did. They really did. But yeah, she wearing the ring around. He obviously is like, whoa, what are you doing? And she's like, yeah, you propose, like, we're engaged. She's like, no, you can't just do that. And so that leads to a breakup, but not a real breakup, because in his mind, they're broken up. Rebecca is kind of like, I guess he needs some time. And then everybody around them, their entire community and family, is like, this is a phase. He'll be back. So there are moments where he's dating Joe and people are accusing him of cheating on Rebecca. Like, what are you doing? You can't just be out here having fun with this random Shiska when you are engaged. And he's like, I'm not even with her anymore. It got out of control.
Yes. Okay, let me talk about this, because I think one of the major criticisms of the show has been, and I've seen so many articles on this, so many think pieces, I've spoken about it a lot with my friends, that they paint the Jewish women, I think, and we'll talk about it because I think it's nuanced, but I think that the topic has been that they paint the Jewish women to be like boring, naggy, like dull, annoying kind of drags. And then they have the shiksas, and I don't even want to use the word, but like, you know, whore number 1 and 2, Morgan and Joe, are a mess, but they get to be fun and exciting and sparkly, and like they're a mess, but in a way that's just so special. And I do think that there were parts of that. Now, I think the show does pretty well in 10 episodes that are, again, about the length of one Australian Survivor Week. They do pretty well in creating nuanced characters, but I do think, especially at the beginning, and then give it time to evolve, especially at the beginning, this like duality is presented. And it reminded me of something. I've given you a lot of Jewish education. Have you ever watched Sex and the City?
I've seen one episode.
Okay, well, maybe it's this one episode.
I've seen the pilot.
Okay, well, that's not it. I'll give you Sex and the City education, where I think, okay, I've got a lot of thoughts. This is my think piece on this rom-com. In Sex and the City, she's the other woman, but her ex-boyfriend marries a girl who she calls a simple girl. She says the world is, you know, what am I thinking of? The world is separated into simple girls and Katie girls from The Way We Were. They have wild curly hair. And the subtext is the simple girls, the perfect girls, but boring, meh, like got it all on point, ticking the boxes, but like not special.
Not a lot of excitement. Yeah.
Exactly. Then the Katie girls from The Way We Were have wild curly hair and frizzy hair, but they're like special and wild, and like you can't tame them. But like the subtext is they're special and different compared to the simple girls. And then when at their first date, where Joanne says, I bet Rebecca has thick hair. I have such thin hair. I was like, we're doing hair again. Okay, the girls with the perfect straight thick hair are perfect, and I actually have thin and naturally wild frizzy hair, so I know I'm special. But the point is that this duality was formed, and I think I've looked back at that in the time since high school. In high school, I was like, yes, girls with straight hair naturally, who don't have to pay hundreds of dollars for keratin and straighten their hair every day, I hate them. You know, no, like they're like they don't get to be special, and I think that like. In 2024, as an adult, it's clear that like that's very regressive. Being not like the other girls and pitting women against each other is super regressive. So the point where they were going back to that on hair, especially, and on this duality, and all of the simple girls were the Jewish women, and all of the Katie girls were the shiksas. I was like, this is interesting. And that's my premise. And then I think it evolves from there. But anyway, thoughts on that?
I think there's some balance to the show that it's really hard to digest if you feel like you fit into one of the categories. Then it feels like it's like, oh, this, I relate to this.
Both. So I'm a podcasting Jewish women. Like I'm
exactly. Yeah, I think that if you're Jewish, you're probably like, oh, the things about me that I see in these people is loud now. And I feel like you're like, whoa, you're trying to paint me looking like this, like dull and all this other stuff. But I think if you flip it and you look at this from Joe's perspective, she's looking at the Jewish women as happily in relationships. They also are stable people. These kids called her a 50-year-old pick-me. And a middle-aged woman just because the guy she's dating doesn't want to be seen with her in public. And so her family is a mess. Her mom is a mess. And people are saying she's just like her mom. She has a sex podcast that hasn't quite taken off yet, but it could. But people are calling her whores that have never met her before. It's not all sunshine and rainbows on the other side with the Katie girls, So I think that there's some balance.
Right. Yeah, you're right. For sure. There's a lack of smugness that Carrie had in Sex and the City where she was like, I have the wild curly hair and that's good. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't have my life together, I'm always going to be the main character in life and the show. And that was very Carrie. And I've got my own thoughts about that from Sex and the City. But I do think that Joe's more probably, well, Carrie can be, but like self-deprecating in a way that she's like, she's saying it like she has perfect hair. Whereas like Carrie saying it like, you have simple hair. Like I get to be the Katie girl, but Joe's more jealous and insecure. And I think that comes out with Carrie in ways. I haven't watched Sex and the City in a long time, but like also is very, very clear in Joe. But I think that the bird's eye view of the show, that might be true of Joe from her perspective, but the bird's eye view is painting, I think, with nuance and it evolves. But I do think that starts out with this duality of she might see it that way, but we know that Joe is special. We know that Joe has the spark that some of these like boring, stable Jewish women who just call their grandparents, which by the way, I think people should call their grandparents, but I don't think that you should be condemned for calling your grandparents, but I think that they're painting it as like, yeah, she's perfect, but she's not the one,
that's probably that's probably a little bit better, right? Like Rebecca is perfect for whatever you would think this is supposed to be, right? This picture perfect relationship with a rabbi in his future, Mrs. Head Rabbi or whatever. But we look Rebison. I'm trying not to mess these words up. Okay, well. You're doing great. This Texas accent. I try to code switch, and then you start throwing other words at me, and I just start to stumble. But
it's perfect. I will say, I want to get to it, but I just like it reminds me of like when Noah's like, "You'll convert," then he starts throwing out all the Jewish words. He's like, "I'm going to teach you about tzedakah and the mikvah, and this is beshet," and I'm like, "You're letting the Jewishness out now too quickly." Like you go, and this is me on the podcast, like there and back.
Really, like I think there's something to say about how Joe desperately wants to be accepted by this community. It's like for her to be the shiny, exciting girl, they're all looking at her and they're like, yeah, that's the shiny, exciting girl. Stay away from her. And she's like, no, like me, pick me, choose me. She goes and finds out different things about each of the people in the WAGs group, the wives and girlfriends of all of Noah's friends. And she does that just so they'll like her enough to sit next to her at the basketball game and talk to her. So I think there was a lot to say about, like how these people are being portrayed, but also that like they do a good job of really showing that although she might be shiny in her red dress, walking in and getting all these looks, people aren't falling over themselves to be with her and to make her, the next, Rebitson.
Yes, I think that the show does a good job of showing how, ironically, nobody wants this, but they all want what each other want. What would you rather have? Like for Joe, she does just want to be accepted and she does want thick hair. And I get it as well as someone who doesn't have naturally thick hair. And for Rebecca, she wants to be what Joe is, which is the one in the red dress that he wants, So I think they do a good job of that. I think the show actually, again, has good complexities for the characters. And I think we'll talk about like Esther. I think that at its worst, Esther could be a caricature, and in a way she is, but in other ways, I think they bring it back, and I'm always kind of rooting for Esther, maybe because I see, again, parts of myself in her. I just wanted to be, like, maybe because I see this duality, like, I want like, her specialness to come through, and I think in many ways it does. But yeah, I think they do really well with the complexities of the characters, and, like, yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, kind of Esther and Rebecca versus like Morgan and Joe, they could just be these antagonists who don't have any kind of color or nuance to them. And then I think by the end, when Rebecca gives this great speech to Joe, and it's fair and valid, and you have the sympathy. Or even when she says to Esther, just like, I miss him so much. If she was just a pure villain, she'd just want him, but she loves him, you know? Like, and I think we see parts of that and we get that sympathy, and I think the show does that well. And then for Esther, who again should just be maybe an antagonist and maybe in a lesser show would be, I think that we start, you know, we see kind of like some of the fun in her marriage that has otherwise seemed like, you know, such a drag. And we see that she's a good mom, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that it ends off with Esther in two ways, like her kind of looking at whore number 1 and 2 and being like, this could be like a real rivalry. But then I think what we also see is she cuts the dress, which had been Joe's suggestion, and she does what her daughter wants, and like, we see that she's felt all this pressure as like the bad daughter-in-law, and she's just been doing what everyone wants, and we see kind of maybe how that drives parts of these like more negative aspects of her personality, and we have sympathy for that. And then we see her kind of break out of that and cut the dress. And it makes me think like, okay, like they could take this where she and Joe become friends. And I don't know, because it's been renewed for season 2. Are they going to make her just purely the antagonist? Are we going to just see it? Are we going to see some combination? Or could she evolve to the point where she and Joe get each other? And we've seen kind of parts of that dynamic. And I hope they take it there, because I think that could be really rich and I would love it.
Yeah, I liked Esther a lot. She is the best friend to Rebecca and the sister-in-law to Noah. And so she has a lot of reasons to dislike Joe. She, you know, her best friend just got dumped for Joe. She sees her brother-in-law making what she probably considers a mistake. And also she's coloring outside the lines. You know, these people are doing things, they're going against the rules. And Esther has been showing that I'm following the rules. And mother-in-law doesn't like me. My daughter's pissed at me because she doesn't like her bar mitzvah, but I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. So throughout, I understand Esther being kind of salty, but I loved her character. She was so funny. And I love anybody whose love language is shit talking, because I like to hear people talk shit. I'm not really a shit talker. I'm more like go on, say more things. And so seeing that was how Joe was trying to bond with Esther. Like, let me talk shit about somebody with you to see if you open up a little bit. It didn't work, but it was a very fun attempt. But what did work was, you know, they played a drinking game at a basketball game. Now, have you ever really went and got drunk at one of Peter's games?
No, maybe that was what was missing.
That was all that's missing. A little tequila.
I'm sorry, you're great. It's very entertaining. He's not in the basketball league anymore. No, it's fine. We'll see. We'll find out. That's a good test. No, well, Peter has stopped playing basketball ever since he moved to Sydney. Another sacrifice he made for me. You see, sometimes you have to compromise, or you have to make sacrifices.
A sacrifice for the good.
But he's now playing paddle tennis. Should I go watch him play paddle tennis and like cheer for him, but then like maybe take some shots?
You definitely need to go watch him and cheer for him. I think that's part of the athlete's journey, you know?
Should I do that? Should I go watch him play paddle tennis with my dad?
Yeah, right?
That's part of what compromising in a relationship is?
I think so. He moved to a different state for you.
He does a lot for me. Believe me.
He does a lot for you. You can go watch him play.
Being with me is a nightmare. Tennis. Being with him is a delight. I'll go watch him play
I've met him. He is a wonderful guy. So I'm just saying, go watch him play paddle tennis.
All right. Okay, you've convinced me. All right.
So they do end up going on a few dates in the very beginning. Obviously, it starts off like kind of slow, but then it just like takes off so quickly because of the chemistry between the two of them. But there are a couple hiccups. One being that Rebecca gets into a car accident, leaving her wrist hurt. They don't really get into like, is it broken? It just sounds like a sprain, maybe.
I don't know what happened. She's okay.
Yeah. But this upends everything. You know, he's not able to text back because he left his phone in the car. And Joe's spiraling on the other end because she's making pregnancy jokes. She just met this guy. She's already like, oh, the kiss was great. I'm pregnant. And so there's the question of whether or not she might be pushing him away. And I think that's a theme throughout as well. Joe doesn't really know how to accept someone loving her. Whenever she finds a good guy, the pattern seemingly is that she will find a reason to not be with him. And that goes on throughout several episodes of the show for sure, Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, in terms of Rebecca crashing her car, one of the things I really liked, and when the nuance started, I felt with this duality, was that Rebecca does that and she's crazy. But then Joe says, that's a high level move. Actually, I respect it. And I'm like, okay, good. See, you guys are more alike than you think. Would the way that Joe has been in former relationships sounds like she would steal the ring and propose to herself. Like, she's also been unhinged. So I think that showed like maybe they're more similar than they are different. Like, you're both crazy and one of you doesn't necessarily get to be special crazy while the other one's boring crazy. And I think the show is showing that, you know, like it's not it's more blurred. It's more 2024 than Sex and the City would paint it in the 90s. So I enjoyed that. And then, in terms of like the hiccups, there's some great stuff here. I loved a lot of the storylines. We can talk about some of the external storylines, but even for them, the WAG stuff was great. I love how they introduced all the WAGs like Mean Girl style. I think it even had like a similar type of music. Like it was definitely a Mean Girls reference, and this is like millennials making television, which is amazing.
Love that.
Yeah, and like there's I think that we see a lot of like if Noah's hang up is how is this going to work, and we see him really grappling with that in ways that I think are difficult and somewhat flawed, which we can talk about. Like he's having to hide her. Like that's been the issue. For her issue is like, just being loved by a good guy, like her own insecurities in herself, like growing as a person, all of that. And even the people in her life don't even expect her to be able to grow and are wary of that. So I think it's about, like trying to, fall in love when you don't love yourself. This spoke to me a little bit as well. And like, actually, this spoke to me a lot. Well, we can talk about Peter a lot on this podcast. He's not going to listen. But like, when I got into my relationship with Peter, I was 20, to be fair. But like, I'm still, still got my issues, but like,
so young.
He had to be but no, I'm not that. I'm still messed up. But Peter did the same thing that Noah does, where I was like, I've got all these problems, and he was like, I just love you. It's fine. Like he gave me the space to grow by being like my soft like landing spot, and I feel like that's what Noah does. And like, yes, he is like, I think like rom-com idealistic, and that's what people want to see from Adam Brody. But like it exists because I've got it. But I think that's what he does. Like he takes those flaws and he hears her, and in some ways too much. Like I think she does things that are actively negative. Like she looks through his stuff. When Rebecca just did that, and it was an invasion of privacy. Don't do that, And she even the ick. She like when she wants to like dump him for being nice to her family, like, you are messed up, but he sees her and he hears her and he receives her so well and gives her the space for that, and also just like makes her a better person. And that's unbelievable. So that's nice to see from a relationship on television.
Rom-com idealistic was a good phrase that you use right here, because I couldn't put into words what I was trying to say. So in my notes, I just put like, I know Book Talk is eating this up right now. Like this is a romance novel, then it's doing the thing, right?
It did, and I loved it.
Yeah, hot rabbi meets this woman who's like, I'm trying to get it together for him so I can be with him and all this other stuff. But I'm like,
and he says, I can handle you.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, bring me your crazy, and she's like, yeah, I'm crazy, let's do it. So I was like, oh yeah, the girlies are reading this and eating it up, but there are definitely some hiccups. I want to talk about how just the nature of him being a rabbi really does like cause the big rift between the two of them ultimately, because there are just some things that you would think the show presents that he would be okay with for the most part. But it's like his duty as a rabbi absolutely prevents him from living his life in the way that would be, would allow them to keep this same thing going for a while. So they end up at the sex shop looking for the obliterator. I don't have to explain what that is if you watched it. It's you just don't put it to level 10. You got to work your way up. And so they find it, and he runs into Mr. and who he thinks is Mrs. Goldberg in the sex shop buying sex toys. Now, his initial reaction is, oh my God, what am I going to do? This man is a board member at the temple, and he's going to be on the like decision-making committee if I ever have to be head rabbi, and I'm never going to live this down. He completely spirals just for being seen in a sex store. And this is
that would not be okay. That would not be that was a bad situation.
Yes. That would be tough. Yes, for sure. And he's dating a woman.
Reference point. I don't think that would be okay.
I think pretty much for any real reference point, you run into someone who goes to your church, you're guys like, I just don't want to see you here.
You don't want to see anyone in that environment.
Right. I don't want to see anybody, no humans. Yeah, just like one, or just let me walk in by myself. It's like nobody can see me. I walk out, nobody knew I was there. I have the mask on, or something like this, cover your face.
Well, the mask was much of the issue, I feel. But anyway,
that's true. So Joe, she's a podcaster who talks a lot about sex. And so if he can't handle being seen in a sex store, obviously this man is having sex. How is the world, or even just his community, or the temple, how are they going to deal with this when the woman who makes her money, as her his mother will point out, talking about sex? How is that even going to ever work? Like, despite all of her issues, it's like, even if I got everything together, he's still like, I still have to change basically the core of my being to kind of be with him. And I think that that's probably interesting for me because the show blurs the lines very quickly. Like I said earlier, with him being the cool rabbi, that I thought, oh, none of this would really bother him, only to find out that there are some things that he just can't avoid. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was highly unrealistic that he wouldn't know who Mrs. Goldberg is. Like, this is a
That's
board
what
member. Like,
thought.
he's coming to school on a Friday night, and surely, you know, like, even on the high holidays, he's met the board member's wife.
You should have seen this woman before, right?
He definitely would have. I think it'd be highly unlikely, unless she was, like, ill, and then you would not expect her to be the one in the sex shop who clearly seems fine. That was clearly, that one was unrealistic for me, that he wouldn't have met her and spoken to her at shul many times. So
no, I totally agree.
But they had to do
I was very confused by that
because it was a great storyline. And then he was like, "Yes, it was funny that he was happy that Mr. Goldberg was having an affair." No one thought about poor Mrs. Goldberg, who is being cheated on and doesn't even get to go to shul, which maybe that's good, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're drifting. Maybe that's why they're let's get into the relationship issues with Mr. and Mrs. Goldberg. Maybe because she doesn't accompany him to shul, and maybe there's distance in the relationship. I'm not saying he should cheat. He definitely shouldn't. But
he shouldn't cheat.
There's clearly some gaps in that relationship. Something's going on.
Or Three's Company, and there's no gaps.
I don't think
you know.
Well, they're assuming. They're assuming, but
yeah,
it's a fair assumption. Feels right.
It feels like you know, our new head rabbi here is going to have to blackmail Mr. Goldberg to get that job. But Mr. Goldberg does end up making a huge donation to the temple, so he knows what's up, and we're led to believe that blackmail works here in this community, and we will see that later on when we find his mother eating pork.
Yeah, I thought this was also very unrealistic, by the way.
I was very surprised by this, Shannon. So break it down for me. She ends up going to meet the family and hang out with the family. She brings over a charcuterie board. It's got pork on it. They shut it down. There's a fight of sorts. There's some words exchanged. And then her mom, the mother-in-law, I guess, she dips out. She goes to the kitchen. And then when Joe goes to find her to talk and kind of mend fences, she finds her in there eating prosciutto out of the trash?
Yeah, she dug it out. She dug the charcuterie board out of the trash to eat the pig. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think that is what people are doing that I know of.
I mean, I've never known anybody to eat charcuterie out of the trash, but
out of the trash. Yeah.
She was stress eating.
Yeah, I think am I like too big to dig cheese out of the trash? I don't think so.
I am.
I don't know.
I'm very much so.
It depends. Is that the last cheese on Earth?
Would you want to eat the last cheese on Earth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think I will. I think that's how cheese gets eradicated. I just eat through all of it. I just don't know that I would dig it out of the trash. I mean, this was like a very sitcom-y moment. Of all the sitcom moments, I think that and probably the sex shop. I mean, it's a sitcom. It's fine. But I just was like, from my Jewish reference point, if that's what I'm here to be, a Jewish consultant, I don't think people eat like you know, and hide it and eat like pig from the trash. I don't think that's just everyone's Judaism is different.
I just imagine this was just like her mom. Well, his mom was very stressed out. You know, like the conversation between her and Joe at the table is you know, mom basically doing what she had been doing the whole time, really being critical of her and making sure she knew that this is never going to work out. You're not Jewish. He's Jewish, and he's going to, you know, we have to make sure that we don't, you know, we don't end all, what do you say, make Jewish people extinct by not procreating.
They really put that on. By the way, did that sound extreme to you? Because I swear to God, that is how they make us feel.
I was sitting here like, oh my God, like as a black dude, I'm like, people sometimes be like, you know, black people need to like procreate with black people because, you know, we procreate with other people, we get lighter and lighter and lighter. We hear that all the time, right? I like my skin tone, you know, but I'd love for my kids to have it, but there's like necessarily a requirement. But like, I never think like I could be a part of the eradication of black people. Whereas this felt like
genuinely a thing. Everything he said,
yeah, he was like, look, this is not happening because it's your duty to make sure that we, you know, can multiply. And you know, that's a lot of duty to put on somebody, but it also puts that duty on her too, to like either be Jewish or get out. And that's tough.
I think like there's the idea of like repopulating the Jewish community that we like literally do hear from the older generations. And I think that it is a big talking point. And I think all of the things that I say is really positive. It's true. And you pointed out that they're negative to her. Like, I think probably manifests in that way, like that sense of community, like the way that like we all kind of know each other, at least in Australia, you know, even globally, like it's really like a kind of a small community, and there's that sense of like othering that we clearly do. Sorry. And then the sense of family, you know, like how, that's why I say with Rebecca, like, you know, her clock in her own mind, what are their ages? Like children are a big part, I think, of like traditional Jewish marriages. Like you think about it a lot, traditional, probably religious marriages in general. So when you think about that, you think about the kids you're going to have, you know, it's a big part. Like if you don't marry a Jewish woman, your kids aren't considered Jewish. And I've literally heard as well, like you talk about, you know, Jewish women marrying non-Jewish men and the difference of that, of marrying non-Jewish women from a children perspective, even though both ways, everyone's like, are they Jewish? Really, we do. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's such a big part. And you know what? It's so normalized that like I didn't think about that for ages. Just like that, like, yeah, we should marry Jewish people. Not that everyone I know has done that, but like it is a big thing that people literally, it is a big part of our community. And the idea of like Jewish children and repopulating Judaism, like it really is a thing. And until like a coworker was like, that's strange in my 20s, I was like, yeah. That was like the first time. Yeah, never. Isn't that crazy?
No, I mean, again, I see those parallels in the Black community all the time. You know, as a Black man, people are like, you have to procreate with a Black woman, obviously, so you can have a Black family. And then when you see what happens on the like the extreme ends, is that you have someone like maybe like our vice presidential candidate, or you know, our future presidential candidate right here, Kamala Harris, she being half Indian and half Black. You got former presidents being like, is she Black though? You know, like, so that's the kind of stuff that we deal with too. And so it's not that foreign to me at all, actually.
We do that definitely, you know, like even like the type of like Reform or Orthodox Judaism, or like how do they convert, or, you know, did they convert? You know, like I feel like we're meant to like, you know, we'll technically embrace converts, and like hopefully we do, but like there's a whole thing in the this was actually a part of Sex and the City too, where like you're meant to reject people from converting to see if they really want it, you know. Like I think there still is a sense of like judgment and alienation for like people who marry quote unquote out, and like it's a thing, it really is. So it was interesting to watch it play out. I'm like, I hope we're not coming off too terrible in this, but you know, it was kind of cool to see it, like to identify with it, but I hope that we didn't look like so mean.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's the reality, but also it's like it's not the fuzzy reality that everybody knows.
Don't show
it's
us
like
for what we are. Don't hold up a mirror.
Like, nobody wants to see some of the darker parts. You know what I'm saying?
Don't talk about it.
Even though it might be realistic. I have a question.
Yeah.
Has Peter ever given you the ick?
No, I don't think so.
No, so not even the basketball.
No, I love him. I love not the bottom kind of thing. No, I mean, I like no, that would be because okay. So the ick thing. Have you ever gotten the ick? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, the moment Rebecca grabbed that ring, was wearing that ring, and I was like, ugh, like it took like 6 episodes before I could even just like look at her. It's like, whoa, that's the lady. Every time they brought her up, I'm like, that's the crazy lady with the ring. Like that is crazy. Yeah.
Hey, it's hot out here for a 30-something Jewish woman. Okay.
We don't know if she's 30-something.
Rebecca. We don't know. I think she's probably.
We don't know. I think so too. I think so too.
I think they could have been more specific on the ages. I don't know. Like,
I think they wanted to leave it vague for a reason.
They discussed it in a podcast that they left it vague. Really? But I'm like, this matters because if they're in their 40s to their late 30s to their mid 30s, if Rebecca's a different age to Joe, like, does Noah want kids? Does she want kids? How did Noah see his life going in terms of like that with Rebecca? Like there's so many questions about that I think are very valid and would be part of even early conversations, especially early conversations when you're already talking about conversion, and they leave that really vague. Anyway, you were talking about the ick. That's just a point that I had about the show. Anyway.
Yeah. The ick? Well, they spent a whole episode on the ick because you know, you just talked about kind of briefly how she had to meet his parents, but he had to meet hers as well. And he really wanted to impress them. So he changed out of his basketball clothes into what looks like a hoodie with a sport coat on top of it and shorts. And
that's all he had in his car.
I don't understand what he was going for, but he did it.
It worked.
I mean, was anything not going to work? It seems like her mom is kind of all in on it, and her dad could be, you know, he doesn't care. I think her dad had brought over his new boyfriend and was more involved in that, and he was paying attention. But yeah, they loved it, but she hated it. She hated the voices. She hated all of that, and so she almost
the Prego thing was pretty bad. The Prego thing. Oh, that's it. Peter does this too. You know what? When the year we started dating, we went to Europe, and he was saying like Louvre. And I was like, this is it. This is the juncture of my life. I will marry this man or I will dump him for this reason. That actually might be it. That might be it.
It's real.
Yeah. And I powered through. And I'm here today, more than 10 years later. But my God, it was dicey.
The show shows you that you can power through the ick, but you have to love somebody and you have to embrace the ick. You have to know it's coming. Every time you go to Europe, you have to know that there's a chance that he can just start turning on his accent, and you're like, why are you doing this?
It's fine. We're not going to go to Europe again.
You're just
That's how I told that. We've never been back, and now we're going to be happily married for decades, I'm sure, but we cannot go near that region of the world. It's fine.
Yeah. The ick is real. They managed to get through it, but that's where they really start to shine a light on, is she just self-sabotaging? And they shine a light on it in the best way possible. They make him just call her out for it. He just comes up to her and says, you like me, admit it and deal with it. And she just melts.
On your side. I loved that.
Yeah. He said everything we wanted to hear so we could really get behind this relationship. And so I think I was all in on it until Rebecca's conversation at the end, when she goes to Joe and she talks to her about converting, and she's like, hey, I see that you're nervous about this thing, but you're like nervous, bad nervous. Like you want out. You're supposed to be nervous, good nervous. Like this is a amount of responsibility that I'm asking for, that I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this system. But it doesn't feel like you have that same goal. And we know Rebecca wants that. And so it really did. That was the moment that humanized Rebecca for me, but also made me really start questioning. It's like, do I like this relationship now? Because it's like, are you all in? Do you need to feel like you want that responsibility? Should you be converting for love? Like it started to really make me question things where at first I really didn't care, Shannon. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, yes, just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that then he chooses her though, in that idealistic book talk rom-com way. Like of course he's there on the other side of the bus, and like who wouldn't melt? Like incredible. I was in tears. But I think that the show does a good job like talking about the ick of like Rebecca, but all the characters, but Joe and Noah both do things that are wrong. Joe more overtly, but like you also understand where they're coming from. Like, so for Noah, the things he does wrong is like, as I said, he's kind of leading on Rebecca, although he's intending to propose, but like for whatever thing he didn't realize in himself, like he wasted a lot of her time, let's be honest. And even with Joe, he hides her at Camp Havarim, and in some ways it seems like he's kind of ashamed of her, as difficult as it may be. And I think like in both ways, I think his issue is he's too optimistic, he's delusional, and he's avoidant, and he's a people pleaser. So like with Rebecca, he just wanted it to work to the point where he didn't, realize the thing he should realize. And that's a flaw that he should have, that was on him. And with Joe as well, he just wants it to work so much for himself that he's not thinking about like, well, I don't think I can marry her if she's, if she's not Jewish. So why did you get into this relationship? Or like, why are you hiding her? Like you should work these things out, but he just wants it to be true so bad, and then he avoids it. So I think that's his thing. And then for Joe, it annoyed me when she got the ick, because I was like, I would never get the ick about Adam Brody, okay? He could do anything. Even the prego thing was fine. So for her, I'm like, get over it and be grateful that you're dating Adam Brody. But then you see that it's not so much about Adam Brody. It's more about her relationship with her father, and like being loved, and someone just being so available, and like, all of these things that she's in a really like problematic way, like learned to shut out. So even like her stuff, it's like, she's wrestling with it within herself, but she's trying to be better, and he's making her better. So I think we see both of those things. And I think that both of the characters are really good. So I'm interested to see where they navigate it, because you want to root for the relationship, because it is a relationship where they're making each other better and the chemistry is so good. But it does have this fatal thing where a head rabbi, which is his dream, I don't think can be married to a successful sex podcaster. I think those things are mutually exclusive. So who's going to have to sacrifice, and how will we perceive that sacrifice? Will it be only negative, or will it be romantic? And how the characters perceive it. So I'm interested to see where they go with it. I'm glad that it's been picked up for season 2, because I think there's a lot more there.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't even talked about two of my other favorite characters in Morgan and Sasha, because what the hell is happening here? So both of these people, Joe and Noah, they have they have siblings that are the unsuccessful versions of them, right? Or like the ones who can't get it together. I forget the phrase that Sasha uses, but
The
he's basically
loser
like
siblings.
the loser siblings. Exactly.
I think I'm the loser sibling compared to my
I thought
brother.
about
It's such
it.
a high bar.
I thought about it, and my brother is definitely the loser sibling, but
Oh,
because
cool. Good for you.
he's my mom's favorite, so I know that he's the loser sibling because I have to
All
do
right.
everything.
You tell
Yeah.
yourself that. Yeah.
Oh, my mom loves my brother and doesn't ask him to do anything. Whereas meanwhile, if the sun comes up, I'm getting a text message from my mom like, "Hey, can you do something for me?" And if I ever say no, it's the end of the world. Whereas my brother, I cannot remember the last Christmas gift he's bought somebody. I buy my mom a birthday gift every year, a Christmas gift every year, and I still sign his name on it. He doesn't know what's in the box. He just shows up and says yes and hugs everything, and everybody's aware of it. Yeah, so I know.
Is he gonna listen to this?
No. What support me in anything that I do?
Oh, now
No.
we're getting into it. We've really gone to some
absolutely
places.
not. I'm just saying, when they started talking about that, I was, because at first I was like, look at me, the loser sibling, just a lowly podcaster out here. And I was
That's
like,
what I
wait a
thought
minute.
as well.
Yeah. Then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute. No. I mean, I think my mom just had a really low bar when it comes to her kids. But
wow. Is she gonna listen to this?
No, imagine her supporting me. Now, if my brother did it,
Who's
she'd
listening
listen.
to this?
None of my
really?
family.
You know what?
My brother.
For real, my mom is years behind on my podcast. When Jason guests, she listens.
Checks in.
And I'm like, wow. Because I
What is that
podcast
about?
every week, but when he comes on to do like one Survivor recap and she listens, wow.
My mom would
But he's not
ask
the
me
loser
about a show.
sibling. I think you might be the loser sibling based on what you're describing.
No, trust me. The world stops if I'm not around. If my brother's not around, nobody flinches. but at the same time, they also just let him do whatever he wants. And I think so there's probably a balance. Like I said, the bar, it's probably both of us. There's like a third sibling somewhere that we haven't met. That's like the shining star who's too good to come back to the family. Me and my brother are both competing for last place. But Joe's sibling Morgan is her co-podcaster, and then of course Sasha, his Esther's husband is Sasha, and the two of them immediately do not hit it off. In fact, Morgan gets the ick from Sasha from jump because he's like, "Why is this guy so weird?" But by the middle of the series, she's having sex dreams about him, and then it feels like they've actually. But did they develop a friendship? Because of the sex dream, Shannon. I'm trying to question this friendship a little more. Is this just a friendship?
Wait, okay. Before we even get there, do we want them to explore this? Because I would hate that. But I think they're going to. But I would hate that.
They have to show me that she gets the ick again, so the sex is off the table. Like, can he have a friend
that is married?
But can you? So you don't agree with like a friend?
No.
Like if it was just a friend.
Okay, this is. I've got complex feelings about it.
Yes, talk about it.
Yes, you can have male friends or female, friends of the opposite gender. I have many. You're my friend, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So then that's fine. But anytime I think that you're lying to your spouse about anything, to me is over the line. So the fact that he would lie to Esther about it makes it inappropriate. But coming back from that, Esther, in her most caricature, evil villain ways, beyond the nuance we've spoken about, has made him get rid of all his female friends, which is even worse than what he's doing, because that's actually abuse. See, Esther at her worst is abusive, and this is like when we get into like the extremes of sitcoms where it's like, it's not that people don't do that, to be fair. Like, people would do that all the time, and it probably does lean into some stereotypes. That may be true, but that's a terrible thing to do to him. So now he can't have a female friend in a normal way because she's created this really toxic environment of that marriage where she won't let him have female friends. So she's necessitated lying of something that should be normal, which is to have a friendship with a woman. And that makes it inappropriate because now he's lying. So if anything, what she's done kind of cancels out the wrongness of what he's done. But I will say, beyond kind of that dynamic, which is complicated, I do think their relationship is flirty and inappropriate.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe, things like, well, she had a sex dream about him, like the way she'll be like, okay, weirdo. There was a vibe. There was a vibe that clearly we both, like, everyone's picking up on it, right? And I don't like it, and I do think it's inappropriate beyond all of the complexity I discussed.
Yeah. Is it reciprocated? Because we do know she has a sex dream about him, but I don't think we ever hear anything from his perspective about her aside from just being friends. I know obviously he's sneaking around to have this friendship. He's hiding in the bathroom, running water so he can have a conversation. So it's giving infidelity over there.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, when he interacts with Esther, it doesn't seem like the relationship's strained at all. It doesn't seem like he is emotionally giving himself to Morgan in a way that he doesn't give himself to his wife. Like it almost feels like it's one-sided in a weird way.
Yeah. I think that he doesn't have feelings, but I'm worried that like because he wouldn't ever expect to have feelings and he's married, it could like sneak up on him. And I do think for Morgan, what we know about her is that she doesn't have friendships with men because to her, like men are just like a more sexual thing. So I don't think she knows how to have this friendship with him, and that's why it tends to that way. And for him, he would never expect it to be in any way romantic. So I think that it's not true of him, but like it could get there. And we could go like enemies to friends to lovers, and I would hate it. But I do think it's interesting with Esther because, if they're going to grow the character and evolve her and like expand on the positive parts we've seen of her, because there's a lot of like negativity to her marriage with Sasha. We see she's like controlling and like all of that's really bad. But then we see some of the fun and the good stuff. And if they're going to expand the side of her, again, I'm rooting for Esther and I want them to do it. I think they have actually a long way to go because she's doing a lot wrong. She was pretty mean to Joe.
She was. She was pretty mean to Joe. And I don't think she's been nice to her yet. She's just kind of dealing with it. And again, Joe's not giving her a lot of reasons to embrace her either, because this is Rebecca's best friend. Joe shows up to the bat mitzvah. She's like, hey, I'm here, but like makes the grand entrance because she knows Rebecca is there. Rebecca has also been lying about some of the things that Noah has said about Joe.
So I thought that was actually a high-level move. I respect it.
It was a high-level move, but to think that Esther's own husband was the leak in the scam, right? He ran his back to the enemy across enemy lines. I think that's what makes it unforgivable.
Yeah,
right. We have a grift going, and you told, yeah.
You would never think your husband would be the leak to someone you don't even think he knows, right? And now that's screwed over your best friend's whole plan because he went to someone you don't even seem to like at all in Morgan and gave your secret away.
Yeah. So even if Esther starts to like Joe, I mean, how can she like Morgan at that point if Morgan has what could be a seemingly inappropriate relationship between her and her husband? So I think that there are so many layers that I'm glad you mentioned that it did get renewed for season 2. And I think it has to. I think it ends in a way where it looks like Joe and Noah are ready to explore what this could mean instead of where most people are saying like, oh, this must be the end. This is the hard stop. He wants. Well, with the head rabbi and Joe, whore number 1, he's like, hey, there's no way this can go. But Noah says we're gonna work on it. And in my mind, I think that to me, it just feels like you just don't need to be head rabbi. I think there are other people who could be head rabbis.
That's his dream, though. He's wanted it since his bar mitzvah.
Yeah. But like the head rabbi, why you get to be regular rabbi? Like why you gotta be the head rabbi?
I don't know what's a regular rabbi. I mean,
I felt like he was already a regular rabbi, right? Like when she met him, he was the hot rabbi.
For her to be like, I think even that it would be weird
it's
to
date. Not good
enough. With a sex podcast.
Well,
that would be a great name of a podcast. Shiksa
What's
with
that?
The sex podcast.
Shiksa with the it's better than the what do they call it? The slutty shiksas.
Yeah, slutty shiksas.
Yeah, the slutty shiksas podcast.
I guess none of it's good, and they probably shouldn't use it. But I kind of feel like the rabbinical aspect is an issue with who Joe is in general. I don't think that like the level of rabbiness is the issue, but I think being a rabbi is going to be a problem unless he was like the rabbi for a very I still think she should convert, but like if it was like a very young progressive like almost like youth movements. Like we have like some congregations here that are like a lot of the young people. I think that like in some denominations like for like in like a reform. I mean, he is reform, so like that's everything he's doing. He's not orthodox, but and then just really young and really really vibey. Like maybe, but like I don't even know if that congregation exists around there. Maybe he should start one. But okay, I have a thing.
Okay.
I have issues with Morgan. I don't think I like Morgan.
I love Morgan.
You love Morgan? I know. I got a lot of pushback when I said that to my friends because Morgan's fun. She's undeniably fun and supportive, and she comes with the alcohol and she goes through the bat mitzvah. Pros and cons for all of these characters, nuance and complexity. We love that.
Yeah.
But my issue with Morgan, in the way, and I was discussing this with a friend, and she was like, they all have pros and cons. So do you think that she's worse than the others, or do you have an issue with her specific thing? And I kind of think it's both. I do think Esther's bad and stuff. So maybe she's, I think, on the worst side of the spectrum compared to like a Noah who's like almost perfect. But I also think like her specific thing, I really don't vibe with. And that is she doesn't want her sister to be happy. And I don't like that. That's her best friend. And she wants her to be sad. And then at the end, when it was shown that she wasn't lying, Rebecca lied, which by the way, what idiots would think that Rebecca hasn't Googled her ex's new girlfriend and immediately seen like podcast artwork? Like, you have a famous business together. Really obvious.
I don't know if it was famous yet. I do think that it's one of those things where, like you were saying, on their end, they're the insecure ones. So they're never thinking that Miss Perfect crazy. Rebecca would be worried about her. Yeah, they just...
That is true. But you definitely Google, like, even if you've Googled it all, like you've gone on Instagram, like all her photos would be with Morgan. She'd clearly know what Morgan looks like. But see, I guess they don't see it from their perspective.
Well, see, that's the problem. Sometimes I get into my Googles and my searches because I do my research. Whenever I come across somebody, I could be in mid-sentence talking to you and I might be looking up your Instagram or your friend. I need to see how many friends we got in common if you say you're from a certain place. Like, I do that without even thinking, right?
Yes.
But then sometimes you talk to somebody and you'll say, oh, you met someone. Oh, who are they? What? And they'll tell you their name. You're like, oh, where are they from? Oh, I'm not really sure. What? Oh, are they on social media? I didn't ask. What? To me, that's so foreign. What do you mean?
You definitely Google.
But don't you hate when you meet somebody who hasn't done the Googles and you're like, give me the phone. Like, I'll do it. I have to look into this. Like, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why did you not have the urge to be so insecure as to go and look up these people's entire lives?
Right.
I don't think I've met a person I haven't Googled.
Right. Oh, okay. So there are people who don't Google everything.
There are people who don't do that.
And they think that Rebecca is one of those people. I didn't know that those people existed till right now.
They exist because every time it happens, we're like, wait,
what?
So how did you not know that man was married? And they're like,
those people are so secure that they don't. There's no way those people exist.
It happens because we always get the shows on TV where people go and they when they finally look into it, they find out. Oh, for instance, Mr. Goldberg is in the sex shop, right, with his wife, and within seconds, Joe is like, that's not his wife. Within seconds, Joe finds that out.
Yeah,
it was just natural for her to look it up. Yeah. Noah would have never thought to look it up. He would have never. There are some people who aren't doing the Googles.
True. Yeah, I guess it's like, I know Rebecca, so I know Rebecca is the kind of person who would do that. And I think that, honestly, Joe should have realized that Rebecca would be the kind of person to do that. She also, like, had a fake car, like, not a real car. She had a real car accident, and she found the ring. Like, she's also on Hinge. That's the thing. They're more similar than they are different. They've both been hella Googling each other. That's what they kind of connect with in the finale. So I think she should have realized that. I think they both could have been like, because she even's like, she doesn't know who you are. I think they both could have realized, like, let's just Google myself and see how prominent you are in this, and if Rebecca would maybe do that. But they don't even possibly think of it. But, okay, maybe they think she's secure. I didn't realize there were people that were so secure until right now. But my point is that then Joe has to apologize because Morgan didn't lie.
Yeah.
But the lying was only one small part of it. My issue was Morgan doesn't want Joe to be happy. Morgan, and not even like in a real supportive way, which is like, there are issues with this relationship, fair and valid. I want to talk about it. How much are you changing for him? Like, all of that would be valid, but that's not it. The things that she talks about changing, I think, aren't legit. You like basketball? Yes. She wants to support someone she's falling in love with as they play basketball. She actually finds it fun. That's fine. Slightly changing and especially bettering yourself as you get into a prominent relationship is so okay. But she, as like looking at her sister, isn't like happy for her, or like happy but wary, supportive. I'm always going to be a little bit more wary than you. You fall head first, but I'll be here to hold your hand. That would all be fine. She wants her to be unhappy for a reason that's self-serving. She wants her to be unhappy with her together. She's possessive of her sister, and she's jealous of the relationship. And she was happy when Rebecca told her this stuff. She wasn't like, I'm so sorry, this is painful. She was like, great, come back to singledom and be miserable with me and be interesting on the podcast again. I think she's too harsh. I think that I get that dynamic and she is supportive, but it's just like, it's highly critical, possessive, and I feel, like a little, it's selfish. And I don't like that she doesn't want her sister to be happy, and that's my issues with Morgan. And I'm sorry if it's a hot take that people don't like, but I think Morgan has some self-growth to do as well. I do.
Yeah. I don't know if she doesn't want her to be happy at all, but there's definitely a lot of truth to what you're talking about when it comes to her wanting her to herself, especially when it comes to the podcasting, right? They're about to have this big break. Spotify is sending like, oh yeah, we're sending the big wigs to meet with y'all. And meanwhile, her sister is hiding in a cabin at Jewish camp, not able to have a picnic out in the open because, the guy she's dating is ashamed of her, and so from her sister's point of view, she's like, yeah, I don't think I support this. I support you, but if you're going to be throwing away our potential,
does she support her?
I don't really know, honestly, because there's moments where she tells her like, "Hey, know your worth. You're better than this." There's moments where she does, she come clean about the Rebecca thing, but to your point, she didn't seem like she was too broken up about the Rebecca thing either. It's like she supported her until she felt like she lost her, and then at that point, it was like, I need to get her back because she's already lost. But I don't think she's like anti her being happy. It was just that at this point she'd already decided that this wasn't a happy path for her. And I think a lot of, I mean, there's probably some parallels with Noah too. Everybody in his community is like, yeah, have your fun, but come back home, whenever you're done. You do the Shiska thing right now, but then like come back, And so I feel like there was a lot of that to there, but there's definitely a lot of truth in that. This is their moment, and I know Morgan doesn't want Joe to ruin it with another one of her Joeisms, going off, falling for a guy that she doesn't want or doesn't need or whatever, and then spiraling in situations and self-sabotaging it in situations, and then coming crying back to her sister after they've already squandered this potential to have this big Spotify deal. It's like these characters are very complex. The only character I really didn't find that complex was Noah, honestly. I mean, not Noah, Sasha, honestly. And even him, I felt like the idea that he's in this platonic relationship with somebody behind his wife's back, it's a little interesting. I really do want to know if they're going to ever explore what that means to him. Like, is he just going to like stand up to his wife and like, I could have friends? Or is this something, deeper looming where it is emotional and it is romantic? And then where does that leave Esther? I personally don't want it to leave with Esther like losing her man to the new shiny fun girl. But at the same time, I think the guy can have friends. So, we'll see what happens in season 2.
There's complexity there. I mean, as I've said with like the wrongdoing, I say poor Esther, but like poor, possibly abusive Esther, but who does have, some good parts, and who also, is being the type of way she thinks she should be. Like she says at the end, she said like, I don't know why I'm the only one following the rules. Like she has so much pressure on herself. And I love seeing the dynamic with her mother-in-law where you're like, oh, okay, you're always like the alpha. You're like, I can get in with all the other wags, but you are like the hardest one. But now here you are like, you're scared. And the mother-in-law, Noah's mother, Bina Rocklove, who she says, call me Mrs. Rocklove, very funny. She's the alpha. And it's like seeing Esther in that flipped way really humanized her in a really, really compelling way. So I think there's complexity to all of them. I think that, to run it through, like, for Morgan, had it just been like concern and like fair concern, or even like concern about the relationship, which is valid, concern about like, okay, but how does this impact me professionally and us professionally because we are business partners, that's valid. But it wasn't that. It was like the glee and like the self-servingness beyond all of that, which is like, I just want us to be miserable together, and the possessiveness of that was my issue. And I do think that is a problem. I think that I think the closest thing to an actual antagonist without as much complexity is Noah's mom. Like she's just like, kind of harsh without, I don't think she's been humanized as much yet. She's shown to be incredibly hypocritical in terms of eating the prosciutto and then like having, bejudging everyone else, which again, it kind of like, that's extreme, but like may work. She accepts Joe, but then immediately, like not accepts her, but like is nice to her, but then immediately goes back on her and says like this mean thing to her, how she's never going to end up with Noah. Like she's like the clearest, I think, like uncomplicated antagonist, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Jewish mothers, right?
No, I think those are the big names from the show as well. It was such a fun watch, 10 episodes, quick, easy watch, 30 minutes a piece. And then, like you said, season 2 is coming, and it has to, because I'm so invested in the story now. Who would have thought?
It's really funny. Like I feel like Sasha brings a lot of the comedic relief, like that the storyline where he ends up like catfishing the preteens. I thought was like hysterically funny. That was so funny.
But also like him just coming out and just saying it directly to Esther, and she'd be like, okay, like whatever.
That was like, that was like the fun part of that dynamic I was really enjoying. Like that scene in particular where they would just be funny and fun. I really enjoyed all of that. Like trying to help Miriam. What did you think of the bat mitzvah? Did that look like, was the theme hitting for you? Or did you feel like that wasn't a good vibe?
I mean, I've seen a lot of like movies now that have these bar mitzvahs. And
did you watch You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah?
I did. And so I've seen how they can get, and they be big. And so this was like, I was like, New York, she's passing out apples, like yeah, I was like, okay, I've seen some parties
though. That was the DJ was hitting, the photo booth was fun. It looked like a good bar mitzvah, I thought. Look, I would love to go see bar mitzvah. I love New York.
No one has ever spent that much money on a party for me ever. So congratulations if you're able to get one. I'm sure it was amazing, but it just, like I said, I've seen some big ones on Netflix alone, and this one like pales in comparison, especially because Miriam didn't really like it that much. But I thought it was good. I thought the whole series was good, and I can't wait to see what happens in season 2 whenever we get it. I'm assuming it'd be like a year or 2 from now because that's just how they've been doing us lately.
My God, when is Severance coming out? It has been years.
It has been literally years. I guess we'll see Severance in January-ish, and we'll see this sometimes probably, I guess, hopefully before 2026, but we'll see about that. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me here to talk about this. Yeah.
Did I explain Judaism okay? Did I explain Sex and the City okay? There's so much to get to.
I think I understand Sex and the City just a little bit better than Judaism at this point, but it's okay.
There's a little bit more to give with Judaism, just a little bit.
Because I remember that clip from Sex and the City, the movie, where that one lady is like, no, you get away from her, no. And I was like, oh, yeah.
The day you were born.
She was very mad at that man, and then that lady was in that wedding dress, and then she got in the limo. That's all I know about Sex and the City, the movie, and Sex and the City series.
Oh, I'm excited. That's at the wedding when she says,
no,
you get away from her. But then later she also says, "I cursed the day you were born." The movies are bad, and honestly, the show might be too. I look back at it and I loved Sex and the City, and then I think some of this was regressive, but I guess progressive for the time. I don't even know anymore, but I like this show.
Netflix. Yeah, we talked about Sex and the City, the premiere here on Netflix.
And the premiere that you talked about.
Yeah, we did, and I'm with you. I don't know if it was good, but it was a thing that happened, and everybody enjoyed it, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. Shannon, what else do you have going on right now in your world?
What do I have going on?
Yeah.
Covering Survivor. When this comes out, I think we'll have just done the post-game show with Marianne, because everyone else is going to be in New York. See, New York is fun. That's a fun bat mitzvah.
It's more fun when you're there.
Yeah, doing it in LA. Yeah, I know. Well, I'll just be here covering the show with Marianne. That's mostly it. I wrote an article for The Confessional. That's kind of a couple of weeks old at this point, but if anyone wants to check that out, that's about Survivor juries. That was fun. You can go to Rob Has a Podcast newsletters, and then it's there. That's it. You're doing so much, Chappell. You're so busy.
I'm doing a lot, but you can primarily catch me here on RHAP and, of course, on Recap Kickback, my podcast where I talk about whatever I want to talk about. Gia and I just brought back our coverage of Abbott Elementary this month. So Abbott Elementary season 4 has popped off, and Gia and I are talking about it every other week, dropping a podcast about my favorite show. And then I'm also talking about The Walking Dead over on the Zombie Kickback on Recap Kickback. So check that out and more on recapkickback.com. And then make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Nothing But Netflix. That's at Nothing But RHAP on Twitter, and then Nothing But Netflix on all podcast platforms so that you can keep up with all we have going on, because we've got to figure out what we're going to talk about next week, but we'll wait till Rob comes back for that. Shannon, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you all next week. Bye.